I see your hands.
Yes, ma'am. Hold on,
Okay.
let's see.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody to this session. This is kind of our first Richmond SHRM sponsored military webinar. So, welcome. We've got a bunch of Richmond SHRM members, board members on the call to be a part of this. So this is, to me, this is kind of like a interactive, conversational presentation. We do have some slides that I will share with you with some kind of information. We'll talk about Richmond SHRM, what that is, and how that possibly could help you in your transition time. And then we've got some panel members that are Richmond SHRM board members who who are veterans, that have that experience, that what you guys are going through, that they're here to answer questions, share their experience, and anything that would be helpful to you. So again, we want to thank you for joining. My name is Tandy Williams. And again, I'm a part of Richmond SHRM board, been for a couple years, and very excited to be a part of this. But today we're going to talk about how your military experience can translate into a successful career in human resources, and what HR really looks like in civilian sector. And again, like I mentioned, talk about Richmond SHRM, how that can support you along the way. And again, you guys stop me. Again, like I said, I will try to pause for questions, but please shout out if you need to ask a question, and we will be happy to, with everybody on the call, be happy to answer any questions. So again, this presentation, we kind of tailored it to our veterans, active duty service members preparing for transition, and military spouses. Hopefully you will gain a foundational understanding of human resources in the civilian sector, learn about diverse paths in HR, and then again, our introduction to Richmond SHRM. So I'd just like to share this is just kind of HR and a natural fit. While HR is a good natural fit for military experiences, there's kind of a big list here, and I'm sure there's probably many more, but this is kind of some of the top ones. Again, it talks about the HR function, the military skill, and then the HR competency that kind of goes with that. So you can see there's a whole list from everything from leadership and team management all the way down to crisis management. So with your leadership and team management, we've got leading diverse teams, and kind of the military skill, and the HR is kind of managing employee relations, your team dynamics, and leadership development programs. And I'm not going to read through all this, but I'll kind of pull out some of the ones we will share the slide with you guys, so you guys can see this and have it and kind of refer back to it if you need. Of course, training and development, in the military, conducting structured training programs and mentoring. And on the HR competency side is designing and delivering employee training, onboarding, and career development initiatives. You kind of jumping down a little bit to compliance and ethics, adhering to strict codes and conduct and regulations, kind of the military side, and then the HR competencies, insurance, the compliance with labor laws. Definitely with HR, we have a lot of labor laws, employment laws, ethical standards, and of course, company or agency policies that we have to adhere to. I know performance management is kind of a big topic, at least on my end. We're kind of finishing up in my state agency performance management. So that's, again, military side, evaluating personnel and providing feedback, and kind of same thing. What we do is implementing that performance appraisal system, which that's kind of how we do all of our performance management, and coaching employees and whatever they need coaching and career development, anything like that. And then crisis management, just operating effectively in high stress, unpredictable situations, which what I know of military is very, what you guys do on a day-to-day basis. And then of course, on the HR side, we kind of have kind of similar experience with that, with organizational change, which happens all the time. It can be layoffs, and emergency response, as we saw the latest ones with COVID. That was probably the biggest one that I can relate to on that one. Any questions or comments, or anybody on the call wants to add to this that might be helpful?
Any questions, guys? No questions on this end. Anybody online got questions?
And there might be an opportunity
Okay.
to do a chat. I know, I think we've got some people looking out for the chat. So if you want to chat something, please do that. And then our folks on the end will read your question. So please, let us know. So what is HR? HR in the civilian sector isn't just about hiring. That's kind of what we always think about, like hiring, firing, paperwork. But it's so much more. HR partners with leadership to support the workforce, manage risk, and help organizations achieve their mission. And again, very similar to how units operate in the military. Oh, sorry. Oh my goodness. All right. So this is just to kind of give you an idea of kind of all the HR functions. I know in my experience when I started in HR, I didn't even know half of this stuff existed. I kind of fell into training, and at that point, I thought that's all HR was training and development. But we have many specialties, as you can see. Some roles are very people facing, like employee relations, recruiting. Those are where we're dealing with people all the time, while others are more analytical, compliance focused. And just understanding these functions can help you identify where your interests and skills are. And, as you can see, you got recruiting, got onboarding, training development, performance management, compensation and benefits, employee relations, HR compliance, and talent management. So there's a lot to HR that I feel like that skills can transfer over. Okay. Again, another kind of chart showing kind of the category of HR, military HR versus kind of the civilian HR. Being structured, I know the military has very hierarchical, rank-based structure, and the civilians more flat or matrix-based, role-based when it comes to our structure. Kind of legal framework, the military uniform, code of military, DOD regulations. And then on the civilian side, there's federal, state, local labor laws. We kind of mentioned that, family medical leave, Americans with Disability Act, and Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So there's a lot of laws, guidelines, things like that on the civilian side. Again, we talk about kind of training, development, discipline, and conduct governed by the military law and chain of command, where civilian side is governed by company policy and employment law. So again, tons of employment law, and wherever you work has their own set of policies. Like for instance, where I work with the state, so we have our own state policies that we all have to follow. Retirement separation, formalized process in the military with benefits tied to service time. And then, of course, civilian is kind of varied by company, include your 401k, severance, things like that. And of course, culture. I mean, I know that's a huge thing everywhere you go. With military, it's kind of duty, honor, service, team and mission oriented. Civilian side's more innovation, collaboration, individual performance. So again, just kind of giving you guys an idea of kind of military HR versus the civilian HR. Any questions or anybody on the call want to add to any of that?
I mean, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump in.
Yeah, absolutely, Tiffany.
When we look at some of the military HR, civilian HR, I think I would look at it as being more tactical. On the military HR side, you're being more tactical, more transactional. And then we're going to the civilian side. We're really looking for HR personnel today to really lean in and be more strategic. So really be the one looking at the plans and understanding from, boots on the ground to final execution, what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, where it needs to happen, and any of the protocol that's surrounding that. So any guidelines or structure that's required, you'll need to understand that. So not that military HR doesn't have to do that, but they're somewhat regulated, and they're somewhat more boxed in the way in which they work. The way in which we work today in civilian HR is not even the same as it was 30 years ago when I joined in the civilian HR space. So it's very much strategy and thinking again, what are some of the desired outcomes in anything and everything we're doing? And so really, truly, it's how you attack it versus just how you check the box. So that's what I would add and just use some language that might speak to you. So it's great to speak to an audience where I don't have to change my terminology. So there you go. So that's all I would add.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for that ad, Tiffany. That's perfect. And the other thing I'll add is just since me joining HR, the whole transition of kind of the data analytics, the data, more data is involved with HR than even when I joined many years ago. So, and I think that kind of maybe can go with the kind of military HR, kind of data analytics part, which is great. Awesome, thank you. All right, so here's just a good, I think, infographic, I think as we call it, of kind of the HR career path. And again, it's not necessarily, you're climbing a ladder with HR. You can go, laterally, you can go climb up, you can diagonal, you can go down. I mean, it's many different areas. So, you kind of look at the entry level of HR as HR assistant or HR coordinator. And actually, that's kind of how I fell in HR as an HR coordinator, and kind of moved from there, which was a great place to start. But you can see you can kind of go one way to kind of the VP of HR side and get into talent acquisition. You can go up to HR manager, HR generalist, HR business partner, and that's the role I have. So if anybody has any questions on that, I'll be happy to ask them. Then kind of HR director, or kind of this on the orange side, more of kind of the data stuff, compensation, benefits, HRS, which is a huge, I know, component of a lot of businesses these days. So again, this is just kind of give you a picture of all the different areas of HR and kind of how people can get there, starting at entry level of that. Any questions on kind of the career path of HR and what that looks like? Or
hey, Tandy, can I just jump in?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, Dion, good to see you. Just one thing I, always like to keep in mind that depending upon the organization you go with, this could look a little bit different. I've worked for smaller organizations and kind of startups, and I've kind of done everything kind of on this page. So if you want larger organizations, you can specialize, but you can also, if you work for smaller organizations, sometimes get the opportunity to get your hands in everything.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Very good point. Yeah, I've had a little experience with that, but probably not as what you were saying. But so yeah, you want to be the hat of all trades. Yeah, go with a smaller, and you can do it all, which is great. Great to have that knowledge. All right, so I'll take a pause for a second, see if there's any questions kind of around the HR, around civilian HR, military HR, kind of what that looks like before kind of our next section is kind of getting more into Richmond SHRM, which is, some of the people here on the call are part of the board or members of our, our organization. So I wanted to see if there's any other questions regarding kind of what we talked about.
Hello, I'm John Lloyd, Jr. The TAP class, is that here in Fort Gregg, Adams? Does anybody know?
Dion, where is it, your TAP class?
The TAP class is here at the Soldier Center on Gregg at Fort Lee.
Okay,
Fort
yeah.
Lee.
Okay. Yeah, so I went through that TAP class in I think it was 2017, 2018. And it can be quite overwhelming. And I just wanted to state that we're specifically kind of talking about those who are in positions of HR, but also you could be in a position that's HR adjacent, and meaning that you could be working with personnel as a military leader, be it the senior NCO or an officer in a certain role, dealing with people and understanding how to manage people adjacent to the specific HR role. And I don't want people to think just because they didn't have a military position specifically in HR that they couldn't get into that field. If you were in an area of leadership, you can modify or use your education benefits to, if you already are a degree, use the benefit to get some courses in HR and then seek the certification to kind of round yourself out. You would have to, or maybe not, but you could probably explore some lower level roles in HR, get a feel for the civilian sector, and quickly grow from there. So I just wanted to kind of put out there that there's multiple ways to kind of look at this thing and to get into this area from the military.
Yeah, thank you, John. That was great. Great
Hey,
information.
hold on, before we move forward, can you provide just one or two examples of careers that you've seen that you can get into HR right away without, because I know we had the chart and we blew up the chart, but are there specific roles within the chart that a service member can go through right away? Or do you need certifications for? Can anybody comment on that, please?
I probably would personally. I would need some help to answer that question. Some of the lower or entry level, I should say, entry level positions that could take someone that's not specifically trained in HR that can grow into that role, learn HR, and then move forward. Me using myself as an example, I was a supply corps officer and dealt with a lot of personnel issues in that role. I have an undergraduate degree in human resources, but all my other degrees are business related, MBA, doctorate in business, and all this kind of thing. And so what I did to try to position myself in the HR space is to seek the certification and take on roles, be they voluntary or otherwise, that would expose me to the HR space. And that would allow me to determine whether I wanted to go into, for example, talent and acquisition or, payroll or all the different aspects of HR. You can do that through the transition, in my opinion, fairly easy. You just have to be a little bit creative.
Well, thanks for your question. Is there any other questions kind of in the HR realm before you kind of move into talking about Richmond SHRM?
Andy, I have a statement really quickly. Hi, my name's Adrian. So I actually have an undergrad in marketing, and I know that sounds like, okay, and I have a master's in business, and decided to transition into HR later on in my career based on my company needs, because I do work for a smaller company, and that's what their business needs were. But I was hired as a recruiter, but recruiting also has a lot of marketing that's involved with it. So I know that there's a lot of public relations in the military and other kinds of roles that you have to market the military that can transition over. And a lot of times companies will help you earn your certification through HR if that's what you want to pursue. But a lot of your skills in the military do translate over into lots of different HR roles. Even if he doesn't have HR in your title, a lot of times you're very HR adjacent in your military.
If I can piggyback on Adrian, I'll share. I was a biomed tech. So I did biomed tech, and then I was a field medic, but I was always engaging and asking questions and probing and trying to understand, what was going on with our soldiers. And so when I transitioned, I started, like Adrian, in recruitment. So that was my transition straight into civilian life. Was I started working as a recruiter in the healthcare field, but nonetheless in a recruiter. And then it just continued to go on and go on. I continue to have interest in other roles within HR. So recruiting, you do find, is a pathway into HR that I see a lot.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. A lot of places I go, recruiting is where if somebody's like, I want to get in HR, like kind of start recruiting because you get a lot of aspects of HR. I mean, I did that for a while and loved it. And you do get a lot of experience and gain a lot of skills in recruiting. So good place to start. Any other questions or anybody else on the call want to add anything before we move on?
I think Ebony had her hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to add into that as someone who used to recruit for an organization that was smaller, privately owned. We had a little more flexibility in who we would bring into the organization. And so we oftentimes didn't necessarily look for titles, but we looked for those transferable skills. So even in bringing team members into the HR space, as a recruiter, if you are curious, if you have good people presence, if you are able to communicate thoughts well, if you are an influencer, those are skill sets that can easily transfer into being a recruiter in talent acquisition. You don't necessarily have to have ever interviewed someone. If you can have an influential conversation, if you can have a curious conversation, those are all the things that we would look for, and that were skills that we would easily look for in someone who could transition into TA. So think about the skill set that you have and the experience that you have and how that could translate into talent acquisition. Again, another great place to enter into the field. So.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry, I was just going to add, although I was during my time in the Air Force, I was a personnel specialist. My first civilian HR position was actually as an HRIS representative. So I know it's back on the chart, but HRIS is the Human Resources Information Systems representative. So if you're the kind of person that has dealt with a lot of customers, for example, or you're managing relationships on the military side, like when I was a personnelist, you're helping those airmen through separation, through reenlistment, through retirement, answering any questions that they're asking you when they're coming in, they need you for something and you're addressing that. HR information systems, a lot of times if you're starting off as a rep, that is essentially handling customer inquiries internally. So you're dealing with employees of the company asking you questions and you're managing whatever system it is that they're using to respond to that. But it gave me really good exposure into what all the other departments in HR did. So because I was answering questions and helping to resolve issues for employees, I had to learn what are the benefits policies. I had to learn what are the policies around compensation or leave of absences or anything. I mean, we were dealing with so much information that we had to become really well versed, and that ability to just learn from all the other departments and figure out exactly what you want to do in HR was super helpful. So I'd say that, you can apply for positions like that, where maybe you're an HR rep or you're working in HR services. That's what I was under as an HRIS representative. I was in HR services, and they're usually the ones handling those inquiries. And then I will second what everyone else said about recruiting. Most of the time when I meet career people, HR career folks who have been in HR forever, most of the time they started in recruiting. So that's another good way to get in. But just wanted to add that as another avenue if you're the kind of person who just likes to work on computers and, answer, check off your to-do list of tasks that you have to do each day, but you like answering customer inquiries and you like to just get things done that way. HR services, HRIS could be a good fit as well. Awesome.
Thanks, Steph and Ebony. All right, well, let's we'll move forward, but we'll keep stopping because this is great conversation. These are great questions. So please keep it going. But thank you guys. So now we're just going to kind of go into kind of what Richmond SHRM is, kind of what SHRM is, and how that could possibly help connect you networking into transitioning. So this is our Greater Richmond SHRM chapter, which is those of us that are a part of. Now, SHRM is a national organization. It sets standards, provides education, and connects HR professionals nationwide. And then nationwide, there are chapters in all states. And then we're one of them, being Richmond SHRM. So we offer a lot of things, and I've got some slides that we'll talk about that. So again, if you're interested in joining some type of chapter, you don't have to be in HR. I mean, you can, like I said, be transitioning, wanting to get in HR and become a member at any area you live in to be a SHRM member. Okay, so just kind of going over our vision and mission. So our vision is every organization achieving excellence through its people and culture. And our mission is to empower HR professionals through inclusive partnerships and collaboration to be strategic resources for the organizations and people they serve. So we're seeing a lot of keywords, right? We've got strategic in there, collaboration, empower. These are kind of all the words we kind of looked at the slides before, which is all a part of our kind of HR lingo. So who we are, we're some of this was surprising. We're one of the oldest chapters in the country, founded in 1958. That's amazing. One of the largest chapters in the country with we have 1,200 members here in Richmond SHRM, and we're growing all the time as new members come on, and we network and pull people in to join us. Our chapter is considered a super mega status chapter, which is great, which is one of the top 18 local SHRM chapters, which just means we have a lot of programs, we have a lot of members, we have a lot of engagement, we do a lot of things in the community. So that's how we get that super mega status. We're consistently recognized by the national SHRM, just being a great local chapter. And again, the largest network of HR professionals in Virginia. So a good place to join and meet people and network and kind of figure out your path in HR. So again, some of the things that any kind of SHRM chapter, of course, as Richmond SHRM specific, we provide a bunch of networking opportunities. We have lots of like quarterly socials, spring, fall, summer socials, where there's a lot of network opportunity. There's a lot of exceptional programming with strategic leadership conference, HR updates, coffee with a CHRO, things like that. Of course, we're all fun people. I like to think all of us HR people are fun. And again, relevant information that can be used in our day-to-day jobs, just talking. And sometimes you just need people in the same space of HR to talk to. I always say it's like, who helps us HR people? We help everybody else. So it's nice to have a connection in a group where we can talk amongst ourselves and be kind of, open and honest with everybody.
Can I just add, I'm just going to be shameless for a minute. And I just want to pitch this whole Richmond SHRM, or the SHRM organization as a whole. I remember, particularly focusing on the transitioning military, getting involved in this network. And it is as far as networks go, you can't do better than a SHRM network. And, trying to find my way in the civilian world. And I do remember putting out my resume to someone who happened to be in HR, and I didn't get hired, but she came back and told me that my resume was a hot mess, and actually gave me pointers on what I needed to do. She didn't write it for me. She's just kind of like, you need to fix this, and gave me some very, very valuable pointers. And so I just want to really just emphasize that that SHRM network, even if you're not doing specific SHRM work can be extremely valuable. And I would encourage people to really give it a serious thought.
Cool. Thank you for that, John. That's great. So just again, just to talk about some other things, I know I mentioned a couple of things that we offer, Richmond SHRM offers, programming. Two of the things at the bottom, so we have a great mentoring program that people can join. And then certifications. I know we kind of mentioned that in some of the other slides about getting certified. So SHRM, the national organization, has two very kind of prestigious certifications: the senior certified professional and just the certified professional. So we have study groups within our chapter that helps people prepare. It's like a whole semester. You kind of meet weekly. Go over, there's books that go along with this, meet weekly, discuss the topics, and then at the end there is a big exam you have to sit for, get proctored on, and then passing it will get you that certification. And then of course with all these programmings and certifications you have professional educational credits you have to get, development credits. So we offer all that too. There's plenty of things, webinars you can attend to get those credits to keep your certification moving forward. So just want to kind of call out some of those areas of things that we offer. Any questions? I know I kind of very high level here on Richmond SHRM. I know those of us on the call could probably speak hours on Richmond SHRM and how it's helped us and myself. Anybody else on the call that's Richmond SHRM board member want to add regarding Richmond SHRM or just SHRM in general, or questions? I don't know if Dion, if anybody has any questions about that chapter.
I would like to add something. I'm Candy. Hi everyone. I'm Carol Ben Susan. I'm also on the board. So in terms of the professional development, we at our chapter, we offer the opportunity for members in the community to volunteer with different events and activities that we have. And that is a great way to connect with other people, to network, and to know the community in Richmond that works in HR. And that's basically how I started with Richmond SHRM as a volunteer in different communities many years ago. So thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Carol. Any other comments, or Dion, does anybody have any questions? I know this is a lot of information. Again, we're going to share the slides with you, and I think this is being recorded, so we'll have a recording if anybody wants to listen to it again or pass it on to other people. So kind of our ending or kind of going off on this presentation is just kind of, we do have some veterans on the call. A lot of them have already spoken, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to have them maybe give a quick what their experience is in the military, and then if there's any questions from Dion's group or anybody else on the call, this is kind of time to do that. So I'm trying to see who is who wants to go first. I know we've got Steph, we've got Tiffany, Adrian, kind of military. Oh, there we go. Steph, do you want to maybe introduce yourself and kind of quickly? I think you mentioned some of your military, but is there anything you want to add to see if anybody has any other questions?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Steph Beck. I was in the Air Force for 6 years. My experience is a little unique because I was in the Air National Guard. And so, did basic training and then tech school while working. Or it took a leave, obviously, to do that, but I was already in the corporate world, I guess. And I specifically chose to be a personnelist or a personnel specialist because I wanted that similarity, or I wanted that kind of parallel to what I wanted to pursue in the civilian world. So even though I was in corporate, I wasn't in HR yet when I was in the military. And so I wanted to specialize in that in the military as well as in the civilian world. And I will say that the military helped me achieve a lot of my goals for getting into HR, because I was able to get my master's through the military, so using their tuition assistance. And then a lot of the skills that I gained as a personnel specialist really helped me understand what the core of HR would be in the civilian world, because although they're very different, it was they have a lot of similarities in relationship building, in the things that are most important. And so I credit a lot of my experience in the military as something that really helped me in the civilian side. So slightly different, because I didn't really have to transition from active duty or anything to a civilian position. But I still think that it's something that can really benefit you. And I think it's not talked about as much. There are lots of National Guardsmen, National Guard members serving while they're working civilian jobs. And so even that experience of having to leave if you get deployed, or having to go to training several times a month, it's an experience that I don't think a lot of corporate folks understand, and I don't think they understand how it impacts your experience in your civilian position. So definitely taught me a lot. I'm currently not in HR specifically. I'm in DEI, so diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is something that I entered through like HR, being in HR on the civilian side. Eventually I moved into this field, and I always say that DEI, a lot of my experience in the military helped me in this career field, because I think the military is the greatest diversity, equity, and inclusion experiment of all time. You're being forced to be with all these people from all over the country. You go to training with people you've never met, and you're all there for one mission. You're all there, you have each other's backs, and you just have this common purpose that really unites you. So I always think that a lot of, besides my upbringing, a lot of my experience in the military really contributed to me wanting to go into this field. Of course, now it's a field that's highly controversial. So I don't know if it's something that everybody wants to pursue, but I did get my master's in HR management, and then I did get certified through SHRM. So I have my SHRM CP. I did take those classes that SHRM offers to get certified, and I would highly recommend that once you know what you want to do, because it is something that is required for a lot of HR positions in the future. So take advantage of the opportunities of networking, of just getting to know what each department in HR does, because I think that's the best way you can figure out what's a right fit for you in HR.
Well, thanks, Steph. Adrian, did you want to share your experience in your time in the military?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Adrian Taylor Parham. Similar to Steph, I was in the Marine Reserves for almost 15 years. Had some stints of temporary active duty. None of that, well, for the most part, was directly related to HR. I had jobs related to food service, logistics, battalion, was a career planner, and did all the fundraising for the Marine Corps Ball for all of the Marines there. But when you look at all of that collectively, it shows you that those are strong transferable skills to, HR roles. Because in a nutshell, when you think of HR, it's just people leadership. So how have you led people in your current roles? Were you a squad leader, a section leader, when you had new soldiers to come into your organization? It's like you had an onboarding process, same, to transition to HR, your periods of instruction and leadership and just training, it all transfers to the same thing. And even from a home perspective, if you're a parent or, a aunt with nieces and nephews, you have the leadership capabilities and it all transfers to HR, but it's just your mindset and how you're looking at it. So you have to look at all of those skills and understand that it all transfers to human resources. And and to John's point and to Carol's point, it's like you need a networking system, and volunteering for um, within Richmond SHRM gives you that. You're able to connect with so many people and so many different roles, and be able to like source that to see what you really have a true interest in. So, can't say enough great things about it. And it's a wonderful field. And you already have the discipline and the skills needed to be successful in any HR role at any capacity. So thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Adrian. Is Tiffany, you still on if you want to share some?
Yeah, sure. I think I've shared a little bit before. Went into active duty very young. I was born and raised in military family, so it was not a new transition for me just to continue with military. So I joined the military at a young age. I was active duty Army, and then I went into Army Reserves. Did a total about 8 years, and I was very fortunate, I guess you can say, is when I left the Army Reserves and I transitioned out. I shared before I went into doing healthcare recruitment while I was stationed in, well, my husband at the time was stationed in Germany. So for me, it was just as I shared before, I was in the medical field. I was a biomed tech, so I spent most of my days and nights in the hospital, but I was always engaging in conversation, engaging with people. So I was building those relationships. So that transition, when I came and transitioned back to the States, where it was a struggle, was really having to understand how to change my language, the way in which I speak. Because again, I grew up in the military. I went straight into the military. I lived on military bases majority, well, all my life at that point. So I never really had to speak civilian speak. And my parents were either in the military or my mother was a GS. So again, imagine that lifestyle. So coming into the States, and when I entered back into the US, I entered in Virginia, and I'm actually from California. So there's all these other transitions, and I just kind of stumbled on SHRM. And this was at the time we were stationed at Fort Story, so in Virginia Beach area. So we just kind of stumbled on SHRM, and it really kind of changed the game for me because immediately I had a community. I had a community that either had been where I was, or understood it in different ways. And immediately I was able to connect and understand, where do I need to go? How do I need to make this make sense? And I was introduced to courses and certifications and webinars just like this one. And before I knew it, within I think like 24 months, I was actually doing classes like this, going back into the military community, sharing my story of transition. And now 30 years later, I've not only showed how to go from a biomed medical, deep medical engineering background into working in the business sector of human resources, but really leading teams and changing the way that they work within an operation space. I know for a fact that's based on the way that I was raised, which is structure. It's based on which comes from the way my family was raised, which was in the military community. So I say yes. I think every single one of you, like Adrian said, you're built to lead. And so we take that into the work in which we do, and then we already have such a sense of ownership. And then you will find a struggle when you get into the civilian sector. Not everyone has that. And so that's why those roles really speak to us, because we take lead quickly, we own what we take, and we know what follow through means, what it truly looks like. So I encourage you guys just to continue to use your voice. Don't be afraid to use your voice. Ask questions. But this is the best place to start, is being a member of our community and getting to talk to us more frequently than this moment. So I wish you all well, and thanks for letting me share a snippet of my story.
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, all three of you, Adrian, Steph, and Tiffany. Thank you so much. Is there any? Go ahead, Steph.
Sorry, Tandy. Just to one last thing, I'm going to put in the chat some information about SHRM certification grants. I will say I benefited from that, and they have military eligibility. So all the information about military eligibility and how to apply for these grants is on this link that I'm going to send here in the chat. But take advantage of that if you are interested in pursuing your SHRM certification. I applied. You have to write an essay. You just have to go through and answer their questions. But a lot of times you'll get lucky and you can get a scholarship or a grant for it, and that's a big deal. So that means that you can study for it in a study group and take the test free of cost. And if you pass, then that's great. Then you don't have to pay for it again. I think if you don't pass the first time, I think you may have to pay for it, but at least this gives you a chance to do it. So that could also set you up right out of the gate for success if you want to pursue your SHRM certification and you have that on your resume along with your military experience. So just something worth checking out.
Yeah, that's good information. Thank you. Thanks, Steph. So Dion, your group, this is the time we're going to open up for questions. If anybody has any questions or clarification, we've got about 10 minutes left, which has been great. I feel like I've learned more about the people on the Richmond SHRM board. So this has been lovely. So we'll just leave it. I'll quiet myself and see if there's any questions from anybody on the call.
Hi, I actually have a question. So I'm currently in the process of separating from the Army. I'm moving to Texas from Virginia. Are there any resources that you guys have for out of state HR events and things like that?
So is it Anissa?
Yes, sorry,
okay.
I didn't introduce myself yet.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I see your name. I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. So every state has a SHRM chapter. So I guess one of my suggestions would be kind of wherever you're going, you can go up and we can share the SHRM link to go out there and try to find a chapter that you can kind of like the Richmond SHRM chapter and kind of get connected that way where you're going to in Texas. So I think that's one thought. I don't know if anybody else has any other comments or suggestions for Anissa.
I dropped in the link the Texas SHRM site. So if you start there, that can point you in the right direction.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Anissa. Great question. What other questions, comments, anything from the call members?
Well, since we have the empty space, I'm gonna shamelessly plug the certification study group. There are several people on the call that are involved in that, Adrian and myself. And and Beth. And so the study group, I'll be leading it this semester. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer that. We're going to have a what do you call it, Adrian? The initial meeting,
A launch.
the launch meeting, I think this month. And so if you're interested in that certification process, it's all done through Zoom, so you don't have to physically be here in Richmond, but you would have to engage either through the scholarship or paying the fees directly. And so we can guide you in that process. I would recommend that, highly recommend that.
Yeah, that for my experiences, that's how I was able to pass the exam, as the study group. I definitely, the study group is the way to go. It was great. So highly recommend the study group for sure. Thank you for that, John. Any other comments, questions? I will say, just to reiterate, I'm going to I'll email these slides to Dion, and Dion, you can at least forward it to the folks that are maybe in the classroom, but everybody on the call will get the slide deck. And then we'll send out Townley's contact information. So if anybody has any specific kind of Richmond SHRM questions, or even HR questions, I will have Townley's contact, and Townley's the executive director of Townley, correct me on that title, of the Richmond SHRM chapter. So she's definitely the good person to contact regarding that. Any other thoughts?
Yes, Tandy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First, I want to say thank you to the Richmond SHRM for putting on this presentation. I know for us in the classroom, it was kind of choppy. We was having reception issues, but for everyone else on the call, I'm glad you got something out of it. I would like to get together sometime afterwards, whenever, and just do kind of like a hot wash.
Okay.
But I really want to, I think the briefing was good and outstanding, but I really want to talk to you about maybe changing the platform.
Okay.
So it's more conducive for us in the classroom. But other than that, it was great, guys. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, no, thank you, Dion. And hopefully we can, do more of these for, this audience of transition, and provide some other, services to help people. So yeah, I'll make a note, Dion, so I'll definitely reach out and we can connect that way.
I would volunteer to go do it in person if someone supported that. I don't have a problem with that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know. I know we've talked about that. So Dion, when we talk, we can figure that. And John, I will definitely put your name down as somebody interested to do that. So thank you.
Yeah, John, we would definitely like to have you, and we'll come together next time. But I definitely want to do this again because it was very informative. Now I want to try to reach more of an audience. And Tandy, I hope you have everything you need to capture your numbers. And we'll talk about all that stuff. But thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. Thanks, Dion. Thank you. And like I said, we recorded this, so hopefully when you get